Hello, I'm David R. Jones of the Community Service Society. Our program today focuses upon what we at CSS refer to as the Gates Avenue Project. The work that is underway in Brooklyn at the Medgar Evers and the Dr. Betty Shabazz complex in Bedford Stuyvesant is critical, inspiring, and a great success. Next on the Urban Agenda.
There were times that you couldn't go outside. They were shooting, they were killing. My son had his best friend got killed there in the elevator. And the gangs was around here, you couldn't go. So I give it's big pride to me as I gotten older to have a safe place to live in. And I think there's a lot, the community is much better. And everywhere you can look, there's something opening up, and it's a great place to live. I wouldn't give anything for it.
Joining me now are three people who have been instrumental in the progress made at the Gates Avenue project. Angela Hope-Weusi is my CSS colleague, the director of our Community Development Department. Charlotte Rodgers is a resident of the Medgar Evers Housing Complex and co-chairs the Tenant Association. And Sanyahu Sheps Amare is the program development coordinator at the Long Life Information and Referral Network, a community-based advocacy group and one of the partners with CSS in the Gates Avenue project. Welcome to the Urban Agenda.
Thanks. Good to be here.
We should start with you. What was it like before this whole partnership developed at Gates Avenue in the complex?
It was really terrible before the organizer came into the community to work with us. It was rats, drugs, the whole works.
And what was the landlord like?
The landlord was like
yeah.
a slumlord doing nothing, really.
Right.
We had no doors. All the doors was off. The places was cold. Some people actually had mice coming up through their commodes. Drugs hanging out in the hallways, right, and all the other things that go along with slumlords.
Yeah. And Angela, tell us a little bit about what the collaboration is like between CSS, Long Life, and the Tenants organization.
Yes, about 6 years ago, CSS made a decision to help preserve affordable housing in Bed-Stuy, and Dr. Betty Shabazz complex and the Medgar Evers houses were the housing developments that were selected as the places that we would do this work. Initially, an outreach was made to Long Life Information and Referral Network for a collaboration on the project because of Long Life's reputation of doing housing and work with people with disabilities in the community. So together we went into the buildings, met with the tenants, and identified some of the problems that existed in the buildings that needed addressing. And from that, a course of action was discovered. That course of action led us into the courts. There was litigation done by East Brooklyn Legal on our behalf, and there was quite a bit of organizing activities going on within the buildings.
Charlotte, did it lead to any changes?
Oh yes, great changes.
And what was the most important for you?
Get doors on the building.
That was
really,
a big one, I think.
That was a big one, really,
yeah,
because some people that had moles in the house, so that was to get
right,
that out of there. I could remember my house used to have, when the wintertime, like the snow like today, it would be icicles hanging all down inside of the apartment.
Brother.
So that was really great.
Mr. Amare, tell me a little more about Long Life and its history. You've been one of the major collaborators in this effort.
Well, I'm kind of the new guy on the block,
right,
but Long Life, as Angela mentioned, the core services are we help we provide independent services for people with special needs. But in this project, we really are spreading our wings out even more, than our core services, where we're looking at community economic development in terms of affordable housing. We're looking at making sure that we do whatever we can to make be the voice of the community and be the voice of the residents. We have this a lot of renovations going on over there now. $20 million worth of renovations are going in there now. So our job is to help the information come right, the plans go right, make the tenants understand the ramifications of the decisions that are being made.
Angela, can you tell us something of the scale? How many units are involved in this effort? I mean, is this a large group? Or?
Well, between the two developments, there are 3 city blocks of apartments, close to 450 apartments in the entire project that we're doing. So these are a lot of families. A lot of individuals have suffered under the conditions that these slumlords have perpetuated. And this is not just a problem in the Bed-Stuy area. Right. It's anywhere that HUD has inadvertently missed the mark in watching what these people have done. They get the subsidies every single month, and they have to assert that these buildings are in safe, habitable condition, and they really are not.
So this is basically HUD, HUD, Housing Urban Development, the federal program,
yes,
provides a subsidy to a landlord in which to take control, to essentially have a building. In other words, so the landlord gets an incentive to operate the building, but doesn't necessarily follow through.
Yes, and it's not all landlords, but the ones that manage to just bank the money, and you make more of a profit when you don't provide services. It's expected that you're going to have security, that you're going to have heat, hot water, you're going to have a rodent-free environment, and those things cost money to maintain.
Now, this project, after 6 years, is reaching the culmination, both for the tenants and CSS and Long Life and others, of a new form of ownership. The old landlord's no longer going to be there, right?
That's correct. We formed HDFC, a Housing Development Funding Corporation, one for the Medgar Evers buildings and another for Dr. Betty Shabazz buildings. And those entities are going to take ownership of the buildings very soon. The transfer is in the process as we speak. It was done through a HUD RFP process where nationally anyone could have gotten ownership of these buildings. But we partnered with Settlement Housing Fund to ensure that our application to HUD would be the strongest one. So fortunately, that did happen on 3 corners there in Bedford Stuyvesant.
And clearly it hasn't happened that way in every part of the city. Some are going to for-profit owners, actually.
Right. Oftentimes a for-profit owner may have what looks like a partnership with a nonprofit just to be in the running. Right. But in reality, it is the regular capitalist mode that is being applied here.
We support capitalism, of course. Mm-hmm. But tell me, Charlotte, in addition to the housing issue, I think some other work began to emerge with the tenants that they were asking for. I think particularly of the youth service work and the rest. How did that roll out for you guys?
The training, educational part, getting tenants organized, letting tenants know their rights. Mm-hmm. A lot of tenants didn't know their rights until the organizers, CSS and everyone came in. Right. Because we just didn't know. We know we wanted better living conditions, but we just didn't know we could fight HUD, of course, HUD. I didn't even know who HUD was at that time. But since then, I think me and the tenants have come a pretty long ways, because now I'm a member of a national organization of tenant union, the National Alliance of HUD Tenants. Right. Also, I sit on the board of Tenants and Neighbors, which is a state coalition. So we are getting the message out to the tenants what their rights really are, and I think we are much better for it.
Angela, we also have some youth programs that the tenants were requiring. I mean, are there a lot of young people in this complex?
Well, with over 450 families there, we have quite a few young people. We're in Community School District 13 and 16, so we're in collaboration right now with Community School District 16 on an after-school program for young people. We also have Experience Corps, one of the CSS projects that is helping young people with literacy. So we have quite a few opportunities to work with our youth there. We have another youth leadership program operating off of Fulton Street that is helping prepare youth advocates and young people to work within CBOs and other community type organizations. So we are, quite pleased with our youth.
Years ago, I used to be head of youth services for the City of New York, and I must admit, we were just out together at the project, and we saw an extraordinary musical event by some of the young people, and I was a little angry because this is exactly what was there 20 years ago in terms of efforts to have young people engaged.
Well, something else we did with the youth was Long Life met with another neighborhood community-based organization. Right. We now have an online communication network, and we're getting ready to link some of the youth in those developments with other youth throughout the country.
I mean, the loss of youth services really is sort of, it's been in the most sharp relief as I look at what's happening on Gates Avenue. Sure. We had, I grew up about 15 blocks away, and basically the St. John's Community Center, I used to spend almost every afternoon over there and in structured activity. And to have watched all that being blown away and us actually having to come back and restore it with the help of Long Life and the tenants and the rest makes me a little angry.
One of our most proud achievements is the Gates Avenue Children's Youth Theater. And that theater workshop has put on productions that talk about the conditions and how the children feel. They actually did a performance at the Billie Holiday Theater written by one of the tenants there, Miss Faison, who is a playwright. So we have so much talent there, talent with the youth, talent with adults.
Also with the youth, we just talked to another gentleman who he wants to put together a project called Through Our Eyes, where they're training them to take pictures of their area themselves.
We'll be right back with the Urban Agenda.
In America, you are not required to offer food to the hungry or shelter to the homeless. There is no ordinance forcing you to visit the lonely or comfort the infirm. In fact, nowhere in the Constitution does it say you have to provide anything for anybody. Thank you for all you've given. Imagine what more could do.
It's much better now. And I see myself. You go walk in 24 hours, no problem. Like you walk in is a nice neighborhood. I believe when long time, everything was badly. 86, 84 was, in my eyes, the truck afraid to come give us the stuff.
You can walk out in the street and you're not afraid. You can go into your apartment and you're not afraid. And it's just beautiful.
You might almost say that the apartments are new. New kitchens, new bathrooms, where floors was weak, they've been redone. Painting, plastering, whatever. Quality of life has changed for the better.
We're speaking about the Gates Avenue project in Bedford Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, with Angela Hope-Weusi, my CSS colleague, Charlotte Rodgers, co-chair of the Medgar Evers Houses Tenant Association, and Sanyahu Sheps Amare, the director of the Long Life Information and Referral Network. Let's talk about something else that's coming up. This is not just any development. It has some unique characteristics here. There's there's a boxing club, not only just any boxing club, a very famous one.
That's right. The Bed-Stuy Boxing Center has been there for almost 20 years, and it is more than just the community space for the tenants. It has turned itself into a community institution. people like Riddick Bowe, Mike Tyson have come out of there. The sparring partner with Joe Louis is still working there, teaching young people how to box. So it is a wonderful facility. It's slated for a full renovation. And the guys there are just tremendous local
But
players.
Angela, there was an interesting issue when this first started. I think the boxing club promoters were very concerned when the tenants were starting to press them to do other things here. But what was the compromise you guys
Well, the
worked out?
compromise is that we're going to have some more women in the boxing center doing a little more boxing. But actually, when we first came on the avenue there, Rite Aid was trying to take over the boxing
whole
center
thing.
space.
Yeah.
The current owner then wanted to rent that space to Rite Aid, and the tenants organized around that. We went down to the courts. It was a big to-do about it.
Well, with so few, the places where young people and others can do things like this is not just a passing fancy for this community.
Oh, not at all, not at all. And community people really support the work that's been done out of the boxing center, the local politicians as well as some of the community stakeholders.
Well, let's talk about, there are other parts of the development, actually there are commercial spaces, which raises the question of what's going to happen for economic development. Obviously, no project can be purely just housing. There has to be revenue, and economic development is exciting to the tenants here, not only obviously for the monies it might help to preserve their building, but also for job opportunities.
Well, I know for one, I know in talking with many of the, some of the tenants, there's a land use issue of the storefronts and what to do about that.
Are
But
there
also,
large spaces? I mean, are there...
some are fairly large
Yeah.
spaces, but because we're the age of technology,
Right.
that raises a number of issues also in terms of what kinds of revenues can be generated there. We're working with One Economy now in one of the projects and trying to put a computer center there, and they're talking about wiring both of the buildings. But if you wire both of the buildings, not only will the tenants benefit from it, but we can generate revenue, from that as well. So technology itself begins to open up as we educate ourselves more.
So each of the apartments is going to have an internet cable link or something?
That's where we
like
going.
the
That's right.
high-tech buildings.
That's correct. That's correct.
Terrific. What about other economic development prospects? Stores,
Actually,
cleaners.
there's a supermarket there now that we're entertaining thoughts of actually having that run by tenants. There is a restaurant there that too could be run by tenants. There's a small bodega, and that may as well be run by tenants. So we're looking to see if there's possibilities here.
Charlotte, go ahead,
We
Charlotte.
also have the dentist's office.
A dentist's
there,
office?
there also. Yes.
Tell me about your fellow tenants. What do they do? What are many of the people engaged in? Are they on fixed income, or do we have elderly? Do we have young?
Well, we have a mixture. We have senior citizens.
Yeah.
We have the fixed income. We also have some people on welfare, of course.
Right.
And we have working families also.
And in terms of economic development, what are they looking for? I know particularly for young people, what are their kids going to end up doing in terms of work?
Yes. I think basically they're looking for jobs opportunity, job training, starting some. I think most of the youth would like to start their own business,
Right.
so they need training in that, computer training, of course, that Amare always talk about, and things like that.
Yeah, it's been real tough. We just came out with a recent report showing unemployment rates among African American young people, 18 to 24, exceeds 30%. And that was the number before the recession really bit.
Well, one thing
this
I
is
really-
tough.
We have to continue to encourage the youth to go to school, to stay in school, to get their education, because for some reason children are beginning to feel like
It's not
they're
right.
being failed. Everything is.
Well, what
is
happens
falling out
along
with
that
them.
line was the trip we took to Bidwell in
Right.
Pittsburgh.
Well, maybe we should talk about that.
Well,
What is
right.
Bidwell?
Well, Bidwell is a training center, a training facility, vocational center in the inner city that trains welfare to work, every kind of group that people don't want to deal with, and give them jobs and place them with meaningful jobs, support their families. And having taken that trip, we're looking at bringing some of those models back here in terms of economic development training that actually we can train youth in, train the men in the area and the women in the area in, that will also bring revenue to us as residents in that area as well.
Well, Angela, what do you think? Are there other models here that can be brought in that would work in Central Brooklyn?
Yes, the work that Amare was referring to is the work of Bill Strickland over there at the Manchester Craftsman's Guild.
And that's in Pittsburgh.
That's in Pittsburgh.
Right.
And that model has been acclaimed across the country. They're doing something similar to that in San Francisco right now. And we'd like to bring something like that to our community. It helps link business and industry to direct jobs. Therefore, you're training people for things that that the employers are asking for, as opposed to training folks for things that may or may not get them work.
Now, I know, this project particularly is working for collaboration with other not-for-profit efforts going on, and I know we've reached out. Can you describe some of the other outreach we've made to other organizations throughout Bedford Stuyvesant?
Yes, we're partnering with Restoration Corporation. Restoration is going to help us deal with developing our economic development plan that is going to go along the Gates Avenue commercial corridor. There are
So this isn't only a project that's for this complex.
No, it's going to branch from the complex up and down the avenue. It's a radius of about maybe 10 blocks.
And do we know the population of that yet? It's huge.
It's a huge population there, and it's the same people. People from various incomes and various backgrounds, living in the brownstones, living in apartments, that will benefit from this work that we're doing.
Particularly now, obviously, we were not out of a recession, obviously, and there are cutbacks that are coming down every day,
That's right.
tax increases. This starts to become not just a small project. Unless there's some economic development engine, unless there's some social interventions here, these neighborhoods could really become unstable. And that's why this becomes so critically important at this particular time. I'm getting real worried now. We hear every day of further budget cuts. And every time the budget cuts occur, it generally targets the least politically powerful neighborhoods.
Well,
like
I'll tell you,
Bedford-Stuyvesant.
we recently opened our office on the avenue, and at that office opening, we've been there for, at this taping, 1 week now, and the main assistance that people have come to us for is rental assistance.
Already is.
Yes, and these are not people who live in the two developments that we're working with. These are people who live in another development because they have not had community organizers working with them to help them get their Section 8 vouchers to keep their subsidies going on. So the community is really using our services.
Also, I just wanted to say that the work that's being done there, the tenants, they have a reputation in other states. Another tenant group, HUD Building Development, contacted us because they want to network on the internet with the tenants who are going through what they're going through in Chester, Pennsylvania.
Sometimes we forget, I guess because I came up in the 60s and 70s where projects and new innovation was going on so often and so frequently, what a low point we are in terms of bringing new ideas back into the community. And the fact that people end up coming to an office that's only been open for a week for help means, the pent-up desire for people to get, help in organizing themselves to take over is really perhaps one of the critical things that we're going to be doing here. How do you feel the challenges going forward? What still needs to be done? Clearly, we ain't done everything here. There's still much more to be done. But what do you think the main challenge will be?
To keep it going after we complete what we need to be done, because we have a lot of more renovation to do, and to keep the morale of the tenants up as we go along, to continue to keep it affordable, because we really do have to keep these buildings affordable. Not only Mega Evers or Dr. Betty Shabazz, but all over the world. I mean, we need to fight to keep affordable houses. So I think the harder thing to keep going would be after we get all these things set in place, to keep it there.
Mr. Amare?
I agree. I think that's the major challenge. I think getting the renovations tight is great. But lastly, I think we need to just have more forums. There are very creative people there in those buildings. And the more forums we have, that the answers are there, right there in that building.
Angela, what do you think the challenge is?
I would say the coordinating efforts throughout Bedford Stuyvesant. Bed-Stuy in and of itself has everything that it really needs to serve the people. It's a question of some level of coordination and of letting people know what's available and how to access.
My thanks to Angela Hope-Weusi, Charlotte Rodgers, and SANYAHKU Sheps Amare. I'm David R. Jones of the Community Service Society. Thank you for watching The Urban Agenda.
We are a city made strong by the efforts of individuals and organizations who give exemplary service to the community, whether through participation in volunteer programs, through unique personal achievement in their professional or other endeavors, or through a lifetime of good citizenry. The Community Service Society of New York adds to this time-honored tradition by helping to transform the lives of thousands of our city's underprivileged individuals.
To comment on the Urban Agenda or for more information on CSS, contact Community Service Society of New York, 105 East 22nd Street, New York, New York, 10010. Area code 212-254-8900.